Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going through a series of video presentations for the Rankin Technical College Application and Web Development, AWD1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class. The book we're using for the class is ASP.NET MVC with Entity Framework and CSS by Naylor. And we are up to Chapter 10. Again, I've kind of been doing this in a very strange way. I've got to finish up lectures yet on Chapters 10, 11, 12, and 13. So I've done 1 through 9, and I have done 14 through 18. Chapter 10, which starts on page 371, as you can see, is entitled Advanced Scenarios and Common Workarounds. And as mentioned here, the chapter covers some of the more advanced topics of using ASP.NET MVC with Entity Framework, including how to code asynchronous database access code, how to deal with concurrent database updates where conflicting data edits may occur, and how to manually run SQL queries rather than using those generated by the Entity Framework. I don't have the Chapter 9, well I do have that, but the one I'm planning on using here is literally the Chapter 10. So I don't need this. I think I've got it in my downloads folder. Oh, maybe not. Well, I'll have to find it, so let me pause for just a moment. In fact, let's do it this way. When we get to that point where I need it, I'll go bring it up, okay? All right. Okay, asynchronous database access. So far, basically the stuff in this book has been synchronous. Now, as it says there, when you do things synchronously, in an ideal world, synchronous code is like synchronous communication. If two people are having a discussion, one person talks, the other person stops until the first person has finished talking, then they stop and let the second person keep talking. Well, in much the same way, synchronous code ties up what's referred to as a thread. So while it's working, basically it's consuming system resources that can't be used for anything else. Now, as mentioned here, a problem with this is a web server has a finite number of threads available. Under high load, this may provide or be problematic if the server is constantly waiting for input-output operations involving a database to finish up. So with asynchronous code, as it says, these threads are freed up to enable processing of other requests. In fact, as mentioned here, Microsoft's stance on asynchronous code is that it should be used whenever possible. One thing to note about using asynchronous database code is that link queries should be executed within the controller rather than being deferred for calling when the view loads. Okay? All right. A simple asynchronous example, adding bestsellers to the home page. To demonstrate asynchronous database access, we're going to retrieve the top-selling products from the order data in the database. First, we'll have to create a synchronous version of the code and then update it to be asynchronous. So let's hold on for just a minute there, and as I mentioned, I'm going to pause, hopefully for just a moment or two. All right, I found the code. As always, when I run it is at least initially coming up with an error. But as I mentioned to you in an earlier lecture, I've decided that rather than me coding along, well, that isn't good. All right, rather than me coding along, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up grabbing the code that's already been completed. All right, in fact, what I may try to do here, since this is Chapter 10 and I'm bringing up Chapter 11, maybe I'll start up another instance here of Visual Studio, do a file, open project, right? And I guess this is the Chapter 10. I don't think I've got Chapter 10 up twice. I think I've got 10 and 11 up here. All right, so all right. Create a view model to hold the data to pass to the view. A view model is used because we are going to create a complex query based on the quantity of items sold and data to the view model about the product, the number of items sold, etc. So in other words, what we have to do here is we have to go through everything that's in our baby store and ascertain or figure out which products are selling the best. All right, so they want us first to create a new class file called bestsellers view models and put this in there. So we'll have product, sales count, and product image. So that'll probably be the product information. All right, again, the ones with the most sales and a picture of said product. Now update the index method of the home controller so that it retrieves the top 4 best-selling products in a synchronous manner and returns them to the view. Here's our using statements, and as you can notice right here, this is a pretty doggone complex link query. So what are we doing? We are selecting, as it says here, let's see, the top 4 best-selling items. So, as mentioned, this code retrieves the top sellers from the database by querying the order lines table and selecting the top 4 products where the sum ordered is the highest. So that's the criteria that's being used, the ones that are selling the most, which makes sense. It also retrieves the main product image so that it can be displayed in the view. Note the query checks that the product ID property of order line to ensure that the product still exists in the database. That way any deleted products, so for some reason you had a good selling product that maybe you decided you weren't going to carry anymore for whatever reason, that would cover that. In order to display the best-selling items, replace the content of the Views Home CS.html file as follows. The view is based on an enumeration of the bestseller view models. It loops through and displays the name of the product and the main image. So notice what we have here. Here is a selection of our best-selling products. Now, I brought up the Chapter 10 stuff. Don't know where this exactly stands right now. This looks like it's blank. Try to bring this up right now. Come on. File, save as. All right, this is the Chapter 11 one. So I guess this should be the one that I want here. Yep, Chapter 10. Now, again, no, I don't want to save that. But let's try to run this and see. I know I'm going to get an initial error, but if we say, yeah, we want to do that. Let's see if it comes up. All right. So here is kind of our finished product. Here is a selection of our best-selling products. You know, when you think about it, this makes sense to do something like this. All right. And again, what are they doing here? They're showing you the best-selling items that they have based on sales. All right. Which, like I said, I think at least makes sense. To convert the index method to become asynchronous, make the changes shown in bold. So we have to bring in a threading, some threading code and system data entity. All right, we've got this async task action result, and what are we returning here? So the code has been modified to add some using statements to support the other code changes, and then the following 4 changes. The method was marked as async, so the compiler knows this is now an asynchronous method. The return type is now set to task action result, which represents ongoing work with a type of action result. The await keyword was added to the code that executes the query. As they mentioned here, simply put, this means the compiler is to split the method in 2, with the first part starting the code asynchronously, and then the second part called when the operation completes. All right. Then there was a call added here to toList async in order to ensure that the query to the database is called asynchronously within the controller. This, to me, is probably about as, I don't know, heavy, let's say, as it gets, or as it's gotten so far. There is one flaw in the project with regard to making it asynchronous. Even if we covered all the controller methods, we currently use the page list package in the project, and that is not asynchronous. So in other words, it has to finish. Okay? There are some asynchronous paging packages, but it says rather than rely on one of them, we're going to build one. First of all, update the index method as highlighted. So again, you'll notice same kind of thing that we saw before. All right, we're also passing in the current page, which we may or may not know, and that's why the question mark is there. So as mentioned, the code adds an optional input parameter named page, then assigns this to a variable named current page. If it's null, it'll set the current page to 1. That's what we're doing right here. Following this, a new variable is created named current page of orders. It's assigned the orders to display on the current page. This is computed So as it says, this is computed using the link, skip, and take methods, and the page items constant. To see how this affects the orders returned, start the website without debugging, and log in as the admin. So let's try that. All right, so we're already in as admin, and that should be the right password, I believe. So we will log in. Now click on the View All Orders from the admin menu and add this to the end of the URL. So we want to go to the View All Orders in the admin menu. And then on the end of this, we want to add page equal to. Okay. You should now see 3 orders rather than a list of orders, and the orders should be 4th to 6th, newest in the system. In other words, these are orders with IDs 4, 3, and 2 as shown there. Do I have that? 4, 3, and 2. The new paging code runs as expected and gives us asynchronous paging. However, it is built into the orders control class, which could be improved. If we want to use paging in the products controller class, for example, we have to add a similar query there. Rather than doing this, if we move the query to a utility class, it can be used or called from any of the controllers. To do this, we add a new folder named Utilities to the project, which they should have done here. Stop the run. There is our new folder called Utilities, and it has async paging right there. So we added the new class async paging to the folder. Add the following code to move the paging code into it. The class and methods are static, so they can be accessed without having to create a new method to the class. All right, so we have this. It says if you run the website now, you will see the paging working as expected using the new utility class. But you may or may not have noticed that the page list package uses a method directly on the products variable in the products controller rather than appearing to call a different class. This is achieved by using something called an extension method. Now, it's fairly important that we bring this up now. All right. As it says here, extension methods enable you to add methods to existing types without creating a newly derived type or otherwise modifying the original type. It's a special kind of static method, but they're used as if they were index methods. Now, that's from C# Corner, but I really should go here to docs.microsoft.com and take a look at it. So, as it says here, extension methods essentially allow you to add methods to existing types without creating a new derived type. Bottom sentence there, for client code written in C#, there is no apparent difference between calling an extension method and the methods that were actually defined in a type. So you're adding things yourself, but to the system, they're not the wiser. In other words, as far as they're concerned, this is just something you already have. Because the async paging class and methods are static, we can create an extension method using existing code. So we've added that, and we've got this. Adding the this keyword that we put in right here, as it says, allows the method to act as an extension method. Okay? And with the new line of code that we put in, we modify the assignment of the current page orders variable as shown there. All right, let's see where we are for timing. Good place to stop. We're almost at 19 minutes. So we'll pick it up at adding page links to the view and building an HTML helper in just a couple minutes.